limestone tools, and we'd be looking for maybe flecks of dried meat, pemmican, berries down here. We find none of that. So what we think is probably the case is that this cave was covered over and that a sinkhole opened at the mouth of it. You can step about halfway down those stairs. Sometime in the 19th century, in between when this land was cleared and the Kalispell people were moved down to the town of Usk, and it was surveyed for the Homestead Act, and people like Ed Gardner started coming out here. Cleared in very large air quotes. Pop quiz for everybody. Up here, when we've got a flowstone growing on the ceiling, it's called a stalactite, because it clings tight to the ceiling. Variously, this has been described as looking like a cacao pod, or maybe the eggs from the movie Aliens, but all I can see is frozen turkey up there. Though for fans of classic horror, we have Cthulhu here. You might recognize this guy better, though, as the beard of Davy Jones from Pirates of the Caribbean. Down here, when we got them growing on the ground, they are called stalagmites. Stalagmites because you might trip over them. This feature here is called green eggs and bacon. These stalagmites look a little bit like sunny side-up eggs. They're coated with a thin veneer of algae from the lights being on so much. And a piece of wall is broken off to form our strip of bacon. Although that is not seasoned with pepper, folks, that is seasoned with pack rat droppings. So it's rather less tasty than a regular slice of bacon.
When's this tour start?
I'll give you a couple of reasons why you don't want to go in there. So the cave, because it's dipping at about 20 degrees, is all downhill from here. But I hope the tour doesn't go downhill from here if I point out my favorite flowstone in the whole cave. Don't know why I like this one, just sort of looks like somebody blowtorched a wedding cake and melted half of it. It's got a very nice, interesting look to it. Over here we've got one of several offshoots to the cave. We know this one brings in fresh water into the cave due to all the dirt piled up at the mouth of it. We think it runs and stops somewhere around April. We've sent a maintenance guy in to check how far back it goes. We know it goes back at least 50 feet. Real skinny guy Rex, he climbed in there head first on his belly, made it about 50 feet in before he spooked the pack rats, and they all started trying to escape by climbing over his body, at which point he backed out of that situation quite quickly. Over here, we've got one of several thermometers in the cave. It has, at least for the past years, always been reading 39 degrees, although that's not entirely constant. It is pretty constant throughout the years due to the fact that we are surrounded on three sides by fully saturated groundwater and of course above you by about 50 feet of rock. It's 39 now because that is the average surface temperature out here, average between day, night, winter, and summer. Although in Ed's time, probably would have been closer to 37.5, and maybe by the end of the century it'll be somewhere near 46 or 47 degrees Fahrenheit due to climate change.
Oops, turning. Is that a battery or something back there behind that one little column?
Oh, I can.
There's like a metal or brown thing. You see there? It looks like somebody put a brown
Insulator for the old lighting system.
Oh, okay. Suspicious. Ooh. funny. I was busy looking at the ceiling. I didn't even notice this when I walked right past it. Yeah.
So we're coming down now into one of the actively forming sections of this cave. You will notice that due to a change in the texture of the rocks here, they're getting a little wet and a little bit more slimy. As we get down here, you also may notice that you get hit on the head maybe a couple of times if you're standing towards the middle of this group by what we call a cave kiss, or a drop of water on the head. It is considered good luck. You're supposed to make a wish if it happens to you. Those of you standing right about there are especially likely to notice it because you're standing underneath the cave's uvula, as we call it. So please don't tickle that. We might get thrown up back out of this cave if you do. Down here, we've got the limestone pools. These are completely full up with water about March or April, but they've been slowly draining ever since. There's still a little bit of water left in them. These form for the same reason that you get a white scum around the edge of your bathtub. It's the same mineral precipitating out in both cases, calcite. Although instead of being allowed to grow for about 6 months before you decide you really should clean out your tub, these have been growing for several thousand years. So if you don't clean your tub, this is approximately what it will look like in about 12,000 years. There is a little bit of water still left down in there. It looks clean and nice and tasty to drink. I would advise against breaking out your 5-foot-long straws due to a certain amount of pack rat urine in that water. In fact, we've done studies on this water to see where it comes out. The cave only continues a little bit further ahead, but cracks in the rock continue for another 3 miles. And eventually this water comes out of the ground at a cold spring down by a boundary dam. Very close, in fact, to where Ed Gardner's shack was. Unclear if the ulcers he suffered from later in life were due to drinking pack rat urine water or were from the excess whiskey consumption. Up here, we've got the speed demons of the cave. These cave features are called cave straws because they are hollow. They grow at the incredibly speedy rate of a whole inch every 100 years. So the fact that some of these are over 6 inches long means some of them started forming before Columbus landed on the shores of America.
Slimy. Is there a name for these ridges here?
Those are miniature limestone pools.
Limestone.
They are smaller because they haven't been forming for nearly as long. So when you have a stalactite, obviously that water has to land somewhere. Sometimes it lands on the floor and forms a complementary stalagmite. If you give them about 1 million years, eventually they will grow together and form this. This is called a column. This is the largest limestone feature in any cave in Washington, one of the largest on the West Coast, in fact. This one is still actively forming. It's getting larger every day, though very imperceptibly so. You can have a look at it and see it's got that very slimy texture associated with freshly forming calcite. And I can tell you that it is actually quite sticky. It looks sticky, indeed it is. You can tell due to the numerous mosquitoes that have gotten stuck to this feature. They're going to be stuck in there for the rest of time, unfortunately, or maybe fortunately for us, considering the ecological impact that mosquitoes have.